Generation X is the most financially misunderstood generation alive, and the reason why will actually change how you think about your own money. Born between 1965 and 1980, these are the people who simultaneously have more savings than millennials could dream of and genuine anxiety that it will never be enough. They drive 15-year-old cars they could easily replace. They spend $800 on concert tickets and use coupons at the grocery store. They manage their own investment portfolios at midnight while worrying they are doing it wrong. They have a rental property, a side consulting business, and a fireproof safe with paper copies of documents that also exist in 3 different cloud storage accounts. From the outside, this looks like a generation that cannot make up its mind. It is not. This is adaptation, precise, logical, and completely consistent once you understand what they actually lived through. It all traces back to one specific economic betrayal that rewired how an entire generation thinks about money forever. The betrayal. Gen X grew up watching a system that actually worked. Their parents had pensions, real ones, funded ones, ones that paid out as promised. Savings accounts at actual banks paid meaningful interest. Companies kept the same employees for 20 and 30 years without treating that as unusual. The formula was simple and it was real: work hard, stay loyal, follow the rules, and the system rewards you. Gen X did not inherit this as mythology. They watched it operate with their own eyes. Then through the late 1980s and into the 1990s, corporate downsizing became the new normal. Companies that had employed the same people since before Gen X was born started treating their workforce as a cost variable to be optimized whenever quarterly numbers needed improving. Loyal, competent, long-tenured employees got walked out of buildings with cardboard boxes. No real warning, minimal severance, zero accountability. Gen X watched this happen to adults they knew personally: parents, neighbors, family friends, people who had done everything right. The first lesson burned in permanently: institutional loyalty runs in one direction only, and it is not toward you. Then 2008 arrived and finished the job. By that point the oldest Gen Zers were in their early 40s. They had done everything the updated version of the formula required. They built 401(k)s instead of relying on pensions that no longer existed. They bought homes. They invested in the market. They diversified. They were responsible adults who had adapted to the new rules of the economy. Then they watched roughly half their retirement savings disappear in 18 months. Their home values dropped below their mortgage balances. Their employers, even the stable, prestigious ones, started eliminating people who had been there for 2 decades. And the specific cruelty of it was this: the people who got hit hardest were often the ones who had followed the rules most carefully. The most responsible savers lost the most. The most loyal employees got laid off alongside everyone else. That experience, doing everything correctly and getting devastated anyway, produces a very specific psychological response. It does not make you stop saving. It makes you save while trusting nothing about the system that is supposed to protect those savings. Preparation without faith. Consistent action without any underlying belief that the system will deliver. Showing up to a game you know is rigged because not showing up is worse. Everything else follows directly from this. Why they save while expecting failure. Gen X consistently reports some of the highest retirement anxiety of any generation while also maintaining strong and consistent 401(k) contribution rates. They are genuinely terrified it will not work out, and they keep contributing every single paycheck anyway. Psychologists have a name for this pattern: defensive pessimism. The mechanism is straightforward: you assume the worst possible outcome, use that assumption to drive thorough and obsessive preparation, and as a result you remain covered when things do go wrong and pleasantly surprised when they do not. It is emotionally exhausting as a permanent operating mode. For Gen X, it is not a personality quirk. It is a completely logical adaptation to having watched 2 major financial frameworks collapse within a single lifetime. What is important here is that the anxiety does not stop them. They do not wait for confidence before acting, because they have learned that confidence in financial systems is itself a vulnerability. The people most confident in their home values in 2006 were often the most catastrophically exposed in 2008. Gen X absorbed this lesson at a cellular level. You act, you prepare, you contribute, and you hold the expectation of failure alongside the preparation, because that combination is the only honest response to what they have actually seen. Multiple income streams as survival infrastructure. Long before side hustles became a lifestyle brand with a clean aesthetic and a motivational hashtag, Gen X was building secondary income streams for entirely unglamorous reasons. The way side hustles get discussed now, especially in millennial and Gen Z contexts, is about passion projects, autonomy, escaping the traditional employment structure, building something meaningful that reflects your values. Quit the 9-to-5. Live your authentic life. Follow what energizes you. The Gen X version of this story has none of that energy. It is about never being completely dependent on a single employer that has already demonstrated, repeatedly and clearly, that it will eliminate your income without warning and without meaningful consequence to itself. The Etsy shop, the freelance consulting arrangement, the rental property, the weekend photography gig, these are not expressions of entrepreneurial spirit or personal branding. They are emergency exits, built carefully and quietly while the main door is still open and functional. This is why the overwhelming majority of Gen X people with side businesses are not trying to quit their day jobs. The day job is not the enemy. The day job is the primary income stream that could disappear at any moment, and the side income is the infrastructure that means that moment will not be catastrophic. The goal is not freedom. The goal is never being completely trapped when the thing you were warned could happen actually happens. Spending on experiences because experiences cannot be repossessed. This is the behavior that confuses people most about Gen X finances, because it looks like pure contradiction. The same person who has a fully funded emergency account, drives a decade-old car, and refuses to carry a credit card balance will spend $700 on a concert weekend without much internal debate. High savings rates and high experience spending living inside the same human being, apparently without tension. But the same logic drives both behaviors completely. They save obsessively because financial systems are unreliable and have proven it. They spend on experiences because physical assets are also unreliable and have proven that too. They watched home values fall 40% in 2 years. They watched electronics become obsolete before the box was broken down for recycling. They understand at a practical level that stuff breaks, depreciates, gets repossessed, requires ongoing insurance and maintenance, and eventually becomes a disposal problem. Possessions are liabilities wearing the costume of assets. A concert you attended in 1993 costs nothing to maintain. No one can foreclose on it. It does not depreciate. It is completely immune to market conditions. It requires no insurance policy. A trip you took cannot be seized in a bankruptcy proceeding. The memory of an experience is the only genuinely durable store of value that Gen X has identified, and they arrived at this conclusion not through philosophy but through the direct experience of watching everything else prove temporary. This is not a generation that cannot decide whether to be responsible or indulgent. It is a generation that did a clear-eyed analysis of what actually holds value across time in an unstable economy and adjusted their spending accordingly. Strategic debt versus chaos debt. Gen X carries significant total debt, mortgages, business loans, investment property financing, while maintaining a strong and almost visceral aversion to revolving consumer credit. They will take on a large mortgage with relatively little psychological resistance and genuinely struggle to carry a few $1,000s in credit card debt. The gap in dollar amounts is enormous. The distinction is not about size. It is about structure and visibility. A mortgage is a mapped liability. Fixed payment, known interest rate, clear duration, defined completion date, collateral with at least theoretical appreciation potential. You can build a simple spreadsheet and know exactly what you owe, to whom, for how long, and what you receive in exchange. The end is visible from the beginning. Consumer revolving debt has no built-in completion mechanism. Minimum payments are designed to extend the obligation indefinitely. Interest compounds in ways that defeat intuitive tracking. There is no natural finish line in the product design. Gen X watched this category of debt consume households throughout their childhood and adolescence, watched it interact catastrophically with sudden job loss during every economic downturn, and correctly categorized it as a fundamentally different species of financial instrument, one that requires perfect conditions to stay manageable and becomes quietly fatal when conditions change even slightly. The principle is not never borrow. The principle is only borrow what you can map to a clear completion. Debt with a map is a tool. Debt without a map is a trap. They watched both in action and they know the difference. The full picture. Every element of Gen X financial psychology connects back to the same origin. They grew up inside a system that functioned, watched it change its fundamental rules without warning or apology, got seriously burned following the original instructions, and kept going anyway, just permanently without the trust they started with. They are not confused. They are not contradictory. They are not stuck in the past or afraid of the future. They are the generation with the clearest and most realistic picture of how financial systems actually behave when they are under genuine pressure, because they were present for it, at exactly the age when those lessons are most permanent. Not the most comfortable relationship with money. Not the most optimistic. But given what they have actually seen and survived, almost certainly the most honest. If this gave you a new way to think about money and the psychology behind financial decisions, subscribe, because the next video breaks down why millennials and Gen Z develop completely opposite financial responses to their own specific economic moments. Every generation has a money story shaped by what they lived through. Understanding yours is the first step to actually being in control of it.